I once dropped $95 on a highly hyped bottle with a fancy wax seal, expecting liquid gold. Instead, it tasted like bitter oak and regret. Finding a truly exceptional bourbon under $100 shouldn't feel like a high-stakes gamble where you usually lose. The price point is notoriously flooded with overpriced marketing gimmicks masquerading as premium whiskey. I've spent the last few months blindly tasting dozens of contenders to find the ones actually worth your hard-earned cash. Here are the top 7 bourbons under $100, and number 1 completely rewrites the rules. 7. Still Austin Straight Bourbon Whiskey, The Musician. When you pour a glass of Still Austin's The Musician, you are immediately introduced to the wild, rapid-aging environment of Texas. Distilled in Austin using a completely custom column still and a grain-to-glass philosophy, this whiskey utilizes 100% Texas-grown grains. The climate down there forces the whiskey in and out of the barrel wood at an incredibly accelerated rate, which extracts deep color and heavy flavor in a fraction of the time it takes in Kentucky. It sits at a respectable 98.4 proof, which on paper feels like the perfect sweet spot for a daily sipper that still retains enough backbone to hold up in a cocktail. Bringing the glass up to your nose, you get a very distinct, almost tropical fruitiness mixed with traditional vanilla bean. There is a prominent note of sweet corn pudding and a heavy dose of toasted baking spices. However, because of that aggressive Texas heat, the oak extraction is highly accelerated. While it gives the bourbon a beautiful dark hue, the nose also carries a sharp, youthful ethanol punch that betrays its actual age. You really have to let this one breathe in the glass for several minutes before those softer, sweeter aromas can fully break through the initial wall of wood and alcohol. On the palate, the experience is undeniably bold and flavor-packed, but it struggles to find a harmonious balance. The initial sip delivers a wave of cinnamon spice and brown sugar, which quickly transitions into a heavily charred oak profile. Unfortunately, that intense wood influence begins to overpower the sweeter grain notes almost immediately. Instead of a rich, rounded mouthfeel, it develops a slightly grainy, rough edge that coats the tongue. 6. Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel. Elijah is a legendary staple on any bar cart, so when Heaven Hill announced the Toasted Barrel expression, the whiskey world practically lost its mind. To create this, they take fully matured Elijah Craig bourbon and finish it in a secondary custom toasted new oak barrel that has been flash charred. The goal is to extract entirely new layers of sweet oak, marshmallow, and gentle smoke. Given the hype and the often inflated secondary market prices, sitting down with a bottle of this feels like you are about to experience a highly exclusive, transformative version of a classic favorite. The nose on the toasted barrel is admittedly an absolute masterpiece, and easily the best part of the entire experience. It jumps out of the glass with rich, decadent aromas of graham crackers, melted milk chocolate, and toasted marshmallows straight from a campfire. There is a distinct, sweet nuttiness underneath it all, reminiscent of candied pecans. If we were judging whiskey purely on how it smells, this would easily be a top contender for the best bottle on the market. It promises a rich, dessert-like experience that gets your mouth watering before the liquid even touches your lips. However, the moment you take a sip, that massive anticipation is met with a surprisingly thin reality. Bottled at the standard 94 proof, the liquid simply lacks the viscosity and body needed to carry all those heavy, decadent flavors through. The palate delivers a quick hit of sweet vanilla and light caramel, but it vanishes almost instantly, leaving behind a watery mouthfeel that feels disconnected from the incredibly rich nose. The toasted barrel finishing process seems to have imparted all of its magic into the aroma, while doing very little to elevate the actual texture or depth of the liquid itself. It feels frustratingly underproofed. 5. Rabbit Hole Dareringer. Rabbit Hole is a straight bourbon whiskey crafted from a wheated mash bill, which swaps out the traditional spicy rye grain for softer, sweeter wheat. But the real magic happens during the finishing process, where the whiskey is rested in authentic Pedro Ximenez sherry casks, hand-selected from Spain. The packaging is absolutely stunning, but what matters most is that the liquid inside more than justifies the premium presentation. The nose is a profound departure from traditional Kentucky bourbon, offering an incredibly lush, aromatic bouquet. You are instantly greeted with deep, dark fruit notes. Think black cherries, raisins, and ripe plums. The Pedro Ximenez casks impart a rich, syrupy sweetness to the aroma that blends flawlessly with the bourbon's underlying vanilla and caramel foundation. There is absolutely no alcohol burn here. Instead, it invites you in with the warmth of a freshly baked fruit pastry. It is an elegant, sophisticated aroma that clearly signals a massive step up in blending expertise and barrel management. Taking a sip reveals a masterclass in texture and balance. The wheated mash bill provides an incredibly soft, rounded canvas, allowing the rich sherry influence to shine without ever becoming cloying or artificial. The mouthfeel is thick, oily, and coat-the-mouth luxurious. You get a massive wave of dark chocolate, fig jam, and a touch of almond nuttiness. Unlike the previous bottles on this list, there is no harsh graininess or sharp oak tannins fighting for your attention. Every flavor note works in perfect harmony, creating a decadent, dessert-like profile that is dangerously easy to drink. The finish on the Dareringer is long, satisfying, and deeply comforting. 4. Green River Foolproof. Sometimes a distillery comes out of nowhere and completely disrupts the market, and that is exactly what is happening right now with Green River. Operating out of the historic DSP KY10 distillery in Owensboro, Kentucky, they have revived a legendary brand with absolute respect for tradition. While their standard 90-proof offering is a fantastic budget buy, their foolproof expression is an absolute revelation. Clocking in at a robust 117.3 proof, this is a heavy-hitting, undiluted powerhouse of a bourbon that proves you don't need a massive marketing budget to produce world-class whiskey. The nose on Green River Foolproof is dense and commanding. It doesn't rely on gimmicks or secondary barrel finishes. It just delivers pure, unadulterated Kentucky straight bourbon aromas. You get massive wafts of dark maple syrup, deeply toasted oak, and a rich, buttery honeycomb sweetness. Because of the high proof, there's a bold kick of rye spice that tingles the nostrils, bringing along notes of clove and cinnamon stick. Unapologetic aroma that tells you right away that you are in for a serious, highly concentrated tasting experience. When it hits the palate, the sheer volume of flavor is astounding. The high proof gives it an incredibly oily, viscous texture that clings to the glass and completely coats your mouth. The initial wave of flavor is intensely sweet, dominated by dark caramel, vanilla bean paste, and a touch of dark cherry. But right as the sweetness threatens to take over, that traditional rye spice crashes in, delivering a beautiful, crackling, peppery heat that perfectly balances the profile. It drinks exceptionally well for its proof, offering a robust warmth without any harsh, youthful burn. 3. Bardstown Bourbon Co. Origin Series Bottled-in-Bond. For years, Bardstown Bourbon Company built its massive reputation by expertly blending and finishing sourced whiskeys from other distilleries. However, the Origin Series represents a monumental milestone. It is 100% their own in-house distillate, fully matured and ready to take on the world. Their Bottled-in-Bond expression is a 6-year-old straight bourbon featuring a high rye mash bill of 36% rye. Meeting the strict legal requirements of the Bottled-in-Bond Act, it is bottled at exactly 100 proof. This bottle isn't just a great pour, it is a statement piece proving that the new kid on the block has mastered the craft. The nose on this bourbon is brilliantly vibrant and distinct from the classic heritage brands. Because of that massive 36% rye content, the aroma is bursting with bright, floral, and fruity notes. You instantly pick up fresh peaches, apricot, and a drizzle of light honey, followed by crisp, refreshing minty character. The oak presence is perfectly restrained, allowing the quality of the grains and the precision of the distillation process to shine through. It is an incredibly clean, inviting nose that showcases a modern, refined approach to traditional bourbon making. On the palate, the Origin Series truly flexes its muscles. The mouthfeel is surprisingly rich for a 100 proof whiskey, delivering a creamy texture that carries an explosion of flavor. The front of the tongue gets hit with sweet cream and candied fruit, but the mid-palate introduces that glorious rye spice. It develops into a complex array of black tea, white pepper, and a touch of cocoa powder. The transition from sweet fruitiness to dry, sophisticated spice is entirely seamless. 2. Holladay Bottled-in-Bond. If you want to find one of the most exciting bourbons on the market today, you actually have to look outside the state of Kentucky. Ben Holladay is producing real-deal, authentic bourbon out of Weston, Missouri, at a historic distillery that predates the Civil War. They operate under the incredibly strict Missouri bourbon laws, which means the corn must be grown in the state, the barrels must be made from Missouri oak, and it must be mashed, distilled, and aged in Missouri. Their bottled-in-bond expression is aged for a full 6 years in traditional ironclad rickhouses, and it is quietly becoming the worst-kept secret among whiskey enthusiasts. The aroma of Ben Holladay Bottled-in-Bond is remarkably dense and historic. This does not smell like a modern craft whiskey. It smells like a relic from the golden age of distillation. You are met with dark, brooding notes of black cherry, old leather, and a very distinct dusty oak characteristic, commonly referred to as rickhouse funk. There is a heavy layer of dark caramel and roasted nuts that grounds the entire profile. It is a profound, deeply traditional nose that commands respect and immediately sets it apart from the lighter, fruitier profiles of contemporary bourbons. Taking a taste is an experience in pure, unadulterated richness. At 100 proof, it hits the palate with significant weight and authority. The flavor profile is incredibly dark and savory, prioritizing deep barrel notes over bright grain sweetness. You get massive hits of dark chocolate, espresso bean, and deeply charred oak, balanced perfectly by a rich, molasses-like sweetness. The Missouri oak seems to impart a very specific earthy baking spice note, heavy on clove and nutmeg, that gives the whiskey a remarkably complex, multi-dimensional character. 1. Larceny Barrel Strength. Recent batches. Taking the absolute top spot on this list is a bottle that has completely dominated the bourbon landscape over the last few years. Larceny Barrel Strength. Produced by Heaven Hill, this is a wheated bourbon bottled straight from the barrel, uncut and non-chill filtered. While the proof varies by batch, usually landing anywhere between 120 and 126 proof, the sheer quality and consistency of their recent releases, like the legendary C922 or B5023, have been nothing short of staggering. When you want the absolute maximum amount of flavor, complexity, and value under $100, this is the undisputed king. The nose on Larceny Barrel Strength is an absolute powerhouse of aroma. Because it is uncut, the aromatic density is off the charts. It erupts from the glass with massive, intoxicating notes of dark maple syrup, fig jam, and heavily toasted cinnamon bread. The wheated mash bill provides a deep, doughy sweetness, while the barrel-proof concentration amplifies the rich, charred oak and vanilla extract aromas. Despite the incredibly high alcohol content, the nose is surprisingly approachable, inviting you into a deep, dark pool of concentrated bourbon richness. When this liquid hits your palate, it is a truly transcendent experience. The texture is incredibly viscous, coating every millimeter of your mouth with a thick, syrupy weight. The flavor profile is a magnificent explosion of dark brown sugar, roasted pecans, and heavy baking spices. Because wheat is used as the secondary grain, the palate is completely devoid of the sharp, herbaceous bite you get from rye. Instead, it delivers a rolling wave of decadent, dessert-like sweetness that is instantly balanced by the deep, dark tannins of the barrel char. It is a massive, aggressive, yet perfectly orchestrated symphony of classic bourbon flavors. Final thought. That's all for today, folks.